meeting is now being recorded.
Yeah, my permit doesn't. Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the eSMR 2.5 training, electronic DMR submittal. My name is Renan Jauregui. I'm a State Water Board staff, and I'm here with Gil Vasquez and SWRCB, also Water Board staff, and we put this training together to give you the tools of how to comply with the new rule that we'll go over, the new EPA's reporting rule. I have a couple of standard ground rules. So we understand this is going to be a lot of information, so if we go too fast, please let us know. If something is not clear, ask us to clarify it. Then we're going to mute everybody at the very beginning, so any questions that you have, let us know through the public chat, or hold them until the very end. We'll have a session at the very end where we let you ask all kinds of questions to make sure the training that we provided and the information is clear and you know what needs to be done.
So in addition, we'll be recording this session. At the end of the training sessions, we'll go ahead and pick basically the best one out of all the trainings and post it online so that you guys can go back and reference these videos.
So here is the agenda. We're going to provide an overview of the new US EPA electronic reporting rule. Then we'll talk about the DMRs, discharge monitoring reports, so you have an idea of what that is. Then we'll navigate the actual system, SWRCB, into the DMR dashboard, and we'll provide you a demo. Then you'll see that there's two ways of entering the data. There's a web entry form, and there's also a way of uploading a whole set of data points through a CSV file. Then we'll show you how to link and unlink DMRs, and we'll explain why there may be times when you need to do that. However, we want to emphasize that for any linking and unlinking, you give us a call before you do it. Then we'll go over the submittal of the DMRs and the withdrawals of corrections in case there's a need for any of those. If something was submitted that was not properly submitted and needs to be corrected, or there are times when a report has, well, we'll go over that. I don't want to emphasize that. And then we'll provide additional information, some guidelines and guides that we've set up. So what is this new rule? So let me give you a little background. If you did not know, if you were not a major in the past, major discharges were required to submit DMRs, discharge monitoring reports. In the past, they submitted them in paper form. And about a year ago, EPA required them to submit electronically, and we basically provided similar training for them to submit the electronic DMR through SWRCB. So just so you know, DMRs is in addition to SMRs. It's a separate report. But now, with this new rule, as of December 2015, when it was effective, it gave a year for minors, basically all permittees, which will include minors and, in the future, general permittees, to submit electronic DMRs into their own database, which is ISIS, and it stands for Integrated Compliance and Integration System. So we have until December 2016 for all minors to submit the electronic DMRs, and we set up SWRCB to be able to do that and let you comply with that new requirement. So what's a DMR? DMRs are summarized results of your reporting requirements. So they are based on your NPDES permit. They are similar, but not exactly the same as the SMRs. The DMRs are for reporting to US EPA, while the SMRs are for reporting to the state. So the DMRs are more summarized, and Gil Vasquez will go over some specifics. Now, the way the process works, when your permit gets adopted, it gets sent to EPA, and then all the requirements in that permit, the monitoring requirements, the effluent limitations, they all get coded into US EPA system. Then it creates the DMRs. Then the DMR requirements are copied into SWRCB, eSMR, and Rassam will go over some of the concepts and some of the background information on how that happens. Then the DMRs are associated to an eSMR, the electronic SMRs. So basically, those two reports will need to be submitted simultaneously. Then accessing the eSMR allows access to the DMRs as well. And when an eSMR is submitted, the associated DMR is also submitted. Then the DMR data is automatically transferred to the US EPA system. So the US EPA system assesses compliance on its own. So all the data that gets submitted will have a way of complying with the effluent limitations. So if there's any errors or any data that shows an exceedance of the limit, it will report as a violation. Also, non-reporting data will constitute a non-reporting violation. So again, we want to emphasize that submitting these DMRs is very important because otherwise, in EPA system, it will show us a non-reporting violation, and you could be placed in the quarterly non-compliance report list. So I'm going to pass it over now to Gil, and he'll explain more about the DMRs and give you a DMR example.
All right, everyone. This is Gil Vasquez, and I'm going to go over a few examples of DMRs and what they contain. So on your screen, you're looking at a typical DMR form. Now, this isn't what you'll be entering data into. This is actually what gets created after you've entered the information. So it's a specific little file that you can create. It's a PDF file, and you can save it for your own records. And Rassam will go into detail on how to do that later on in the presentation. But let's go ahead and get started. So in the upper left-hand corner, we have the NPDES number. So a lot of you have order numbers out there and the NPDES numbers. So in US EPA's database system, the NPDES number is the only thing that they use to reference these DMRs to your facility. Order numbers are a state-issued number and are not used in DMRs. On the right-hand side, we have the facility name. In this case, it's Phillips Santa Maria Refinery. Then we move on to the next line. So we have the featured limit set, and I'll go over that in detail. This is basically your outfall number and a letter representing the monitoring period. On the right-hand side, it actually gives you the monitoring period. This is February 1st through February 29th of 2016. You want to make sure that you have the correct monitoring period linked to the SMRs. Rassam will go over a few examples on how to check that, and I will later on as well. So let's look at the feature limit set. So the first half of the feature limit set, these 3 digits, is the outfall number. Most of you have probably one outfall. There's some facilities out there that have multiple outfalls, so this would just be a sequencing number. The next, or the actual letter associated with this number is a frequency designator. So some of the most commonly used frequency designators are A for monthly, not annual. In this case, it's for monthly. Q for quarterly. S for semi-annual. Y is for annually or yearly. And R is for a specific reporting frequency. So I put the R in here to show you, because some of the permits out there require you to submit a report maybe once every 3 years or at the beginning of the permit cycle, and that's when you'll see this R designator. So let's take a look at the bulk of the DMR form. And we'll zoom into it a little more. So on the left-hand side, we have the parameter. So in this case, it's temperature, pH, TSS, suitable solids, and ammonia. And the next 2 columns, Q1 and Q2, represent quantity and mass values. So this is your pounds per day, your million gallons per day, gallons per day. The next 2 columns, or actually, well, going back to these Q1 and Q2, the first one, Q1, is for your monthly averages, and Q2 is for your daily maxes. Then the next 3 columns, C1, C2, and C3, these columns are used for concentrations. The first column is usually used for your minimum value. In this case, pH has a minimum value. Your C2 column is usually used for monthly averages. And your C3 is for your maximums. Whether it's instantaneous or daily max or a weekly high, it'll be in this column. So the next part, we'll look at the last 2 columns of this DMR form. So the first of the 2 is the frequency of analysis. And some of the most commonly used frequency of analysis are daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, annually, and continuous. Now, there's a special one in here. It says C permit. Sometimes the permit allows you to choose your own frequency of analysis. When that's the case, US EPA codes the system, and it just says C permit. Now you can actually go in and change these if you like. If let's say, for instance, it says monthly, but in reality you've been doing it on a weekly basis, you can go in and change that value, and Rasan will go into detail on how to do that. So the last column is the sample type, and the commonly used sample types are grab, 24-hour, composite, continuous, and calculated. And as you can see, they've abbreviated those. So now I'll pass it over to Rasan, and he'll go through the DMR database system and how to enter the information.
All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Rasan SWRCB, and we probably met before. We did training for the original eSMR system. We either did in-person training or WebEx training. So I'll be going over the eSMR part and the DMR dashboard. So on the screen right now, we have our login page. So you guys should be familiar with that. You enter in your user ID and password. Once you enter your information, you're taken to the main menu. And then on the main menu, similar to submitting an SMR, you click on that first link, Submit and Review an SMR or DMR. Once you click on that, you're taken to the facility selection screen. So if you are responsible for multiple facilities, you'd see them listed here. If you only are responsible for one facility, you'd be taken to the order selection screen. In the order selection screen, you select your permit. When you select your permit, you're taken to the report selection screen. So what we have right now is a list of all the reports for your permit. And so at the top, we have a filter, and the filter displays the different statuses, so submitted, in progress, past due, future, withdrawn, and then also a date range. And so that date range, by default, displays 6 months of past and 6 months of future reports. And so you can adjust those filters at the top to display the reports you want to see below. So by checking those statuses or adjusting the date range and clicking refresh list, you could change the table that's displayed below. And so by default, it does show 6 months of past, 6 months of future, and all the check boxes are checked by default. And this is normal stuff for your SMR submittal as well. So to submit a report, for example, for the August DMR, the DMR is actually linked to the SMR. So if we click on that August SMR, it brings up the report builder. So on the report builder, we have all the different tabs that go across. Those tabs are like buckets. Each one you put different information into it. So the no discharge tab is a bucket. You put the no discharge dates. EDF, CDF, that's where you upload your PET tool if you use the PET tool. If you enter in data to the web entry screens, use the analytical calculated data entry. We have the data summary tab, which displays all the data points that you've entered in, attachments, violations. And so today we're going to look at that DMR tab. So that will be a new tab. So on the DMR tab, we have what is called the DMR dashboard. And so the DMR dashboard lets you navigate through the DMRs. And so we'll first take a look at that table that it displays. And that table has a few columns, and we'll go over those columns and how important, what's the importance of each one. So the first one is the feature limit set, just as Gail went over. So 001 is the outfall, and then A is the designator, so A would be a monthly. And you could verify that by just looking at the next column, which is the monitoring period. So the monitoring period is August 1st to the 31st. And you want to pay close attention to that when you're filling out the DMR. Sometimes the DMRs are linked to an earlier SMR, and that may cause confusion. So when you're filling out the DMR, make sure you look at that monitoring period and make sure it's the right information that you're entering in. When we link the DMRs to the SMRs, there's two ways that it goes about it. The first one is an exact match. It looks at the monitoring period and the due date. And if it finds an exact SMR that has the same monitoring period and due date, it links them, and that's an exact match. And then there's a second way of linking it, and it's called an approximate match. So it looks at the monitoring period, and if it looks at the DMR monitoring period, it looks at the SMR monitoring period. If it finds that, the next thing is it looks at the due date, And so this is where we had problems. Some facilities or some permits, they may be allowed to submit their reports on just weekdays rather than if the due date lands on a weekend. So if the due date landed on a Saturday or Sunday, that SMR sometimes is coded to be due on the following Monday. So if the first is Saturday, the SMR may say that it's due on the following Monday, which is the 3rd. And so when the DMR goes to link to that one, the DMR due date shows as the 1st, and it doesn't want to link to that SMR because the 3rd will be considered late, so it links it to the next earliest SMR. So when you're filling out these DMRs, you want to make sure you look at that monitoring period and making sure that date is correct. The next column after that is the no-DI column. So if you wanted to apply a no-DI code to the entire feature limit set, you can use that drop-down menu and select a no-DI code. And we'll be going over those codes a little bit later on and which ones are appropriate and when to use them. We'll talk about that a little bit later. The second to last column is status. And as you can see on the screen, we have 4 different types of statuses, and then we also have them color-coded. So the red means that you need to enter in more information or it's incomplete, and then the green means it's ready to go. So the first one is empty, and that means that you haven't touched any of the data in that report for that feature limit set. So 001, we haven't entered any information in. You could enter a no-DI code at this point. If you hadn't entered in any information, you can apply a no-DI code to the entire feature limit set. Suppose you clicked on that and you entered in a few results. Once you enter those results, you can click Save and come back at a later time to fill it out, but you'll notice that the status does change from empty to incomplete. So incomplete means that you've entered some data, but it's not complete. If you did, from looking at option 1 where it's empty, if you did apply a no-DI code, you'd see that the no-DI code would be displayed, and then that status would be changed to no-DI, and it would be green, letting you know that it's complete. And then the last one, complete, means that you've entered in all the results for that feature limit set. The last column we have is the unlinked column. So for instance, if you find that the monitoring period is incorrect, or if you want to link this DMR to a different SMR, you have the ability to unlink it and then link it to another SMR. But we ask that before you unlink and link, you call the DMR help desk first, so that we can figure out if there is a problem, with the due dates, and if it's not matching correctly. We don't want you to burden you with having to unlink it and relink it every month. So if there's something that we can fix on our side, please contact us first, and then we'll try to figure out a way to fix the DMRs matching the SMRs. But if it's something that you wanted to do, if you wanted to finish this DMR ahead of time, or if you wanted to include it like in your quarterly SMR or something, you do have that ability to unlink it. And once you unlink it, you'll see down below there's another section called Add DMR to this report. And if there are any DMRs that are not linked to an SMR, they will be down below in a drop-down box, and you could link them to the SMR by clicking on them and clicking Add. And we'll go over that in our demo as well. So we looked at the dashboard, we looked at that table. In that table, it's the DMRs that are automatically linked. If you unlink them, they'll be in a table below that, in that Add DMR to Report section. And if we look over to the right-hand side, there's 2 buttons. So the first button on top is Upload Manage Files. So if you chose to create your own upload file and populate the feature limit sets, you click on that and you could upload your own file. Typically, most people actually click on the feature limit set in that table, and they use the web entry screens to enter in their data. And then the next button is the DMR PDF report. So once you've entered in your data, or before you enter in your data, you can create a PDF of those feature limit sets that are shown in that table. So before you submit your report, you could review all the data that you've entered in. You could print it out. You could show it to a coworker or manager or supervisor and then verify it before you submit it. So we briefly talked about the different ways to enter information. I have a couple slides on that. So the first one, how to enter DMR data, the manual entry using the web forms. So these web forms show you exactly what is required by ISIS, which is the EPA's database system. And so as Gil mentioned earlier, we have different sections. And so if we first look at this, the top banner, we're looking at temperature. And in that first section, we have quantity or loading. So that's quantity or loading. And we have Q1, which is typically the average for that monitoring period. And then Q2, which is the max for that monitoring period. And then the units. So you'll have your pounds per day, pounds per month. So it's the quantity. The next section is the quality or concentration. And then the first group, C1, is the min for that monitoring period. C2 is typically the average. C3 is typically the max. And then again, the units. So you'll have, like, for instance, temperature, we have degree C. If we had another parameter, we may have milligrams per liter. And then moving down, we also have a field for excursions. And that's where you report any exceedances over, or any exceedances, of what they state as your limit. So for temperature, there is no limit. If we look down below at turbidity, it shows that limit. It's less than or equal to 10. So if you were at any time over 10, then you'd put in that number as the number of excursions. We also have sample type, so you have grab, and then the frequency, which is daily. And those are what are going to be pre-populated for your specific report. If you have something other than that, you can click on that drop-down menu and change it. So below that, we also have a column for NoDI. If you wanted to apply a NoDI code just for that one parameter, you can click on that box and select a NoDI code. We'll go over the list of NoDI codes and what would be appropriate to use a little bit later. All right, and then below NoDI, we have source. And so if you use the web entry screens, the source will state web entry. If you uploaded a file, it would say the upload file name. And then below source, we have what is called like our status box, and it lets you know the status of that result for that parameter. So it's saying that C3 is not complete. You need to enter in a result for C3. If you did change like the sample type or frequency from what was expected, you'd get like a warning down below stating that the sample type or frequency was changed from what ISIS is expecting. And so the web entry forms, let me say it again, it's unique for your permit. And so when EPA gets the permits, they actually code in your parameters and what's expected, the max, the average, or the min. So they code it into ISIS. And then so the web entry forms are created by us fetching what is called like an empty slot file from ISIS. And then that's how we create these web entry forms. So what you see on the screen is what you're supposed to enter in. So you're just seeing for temperature, you're only required to enter in a C3. For turbidity, you're only required to enter in a C3 as well. So that's how it differs from the PET tool. The PET tool, you're entering in stuff on a daily basis, all your monitoring that you're taking, as well as showing that you're in compliance with your limits in your permit. Whereas this DMR form right here, it's more of summary information. You're not putting in the method you use. You're not putting in your sample dates or analysis dates. You're simply entering in your results, your units, the sample type, and then the frequency. So for instance, what we have right here, temperature. If you're taking a sample every day, it says daily, and the sample type is a grab, it's asking you to put in the max temperature. So if you sampled it every day and you're getting 70s or 80s, and then one day you got 88 out of that month, and that was the highest that you got from that month, you'd put in 88 as your max. So it's summary information. The other way to enter in data is using an upload file. And so we have specifications on how to build this upload file on our web page. It's a little bit different than the PET tool. The fields are different. So with our PET tool, we use the EDF format, and that was developed by the Army Corps of Engineers, and I believe that's widely used in the labs. And so this upload format is created by EPA, so it's different. And so your SMR, your PET tool, that's your monitoring data and showing that you're in compliance for the state. And then here we are with the DMR data. It's a separate file. It's a separate data set, and you're sending that to us, and then we're forwarding it over to EPA. So if you want to build a DMR file, a DMR upload file, we have the instructions on our web page. So suppose you get your data in and you want to make changes. So it depends on how you get your data in is going to reflect how you make those changes. So if you use the web entry screens, you simply go back to those web entry screens and you could update your data. If you generated an upload file, what you need to do is delete that original upload file, make changes on your computer, and then re-upload a new file. We talked about linking and unlinking a little bit earlier. This slide demonstrates what you'd see on the screen. So if you chose to unlink one of the feature limit sets from the dashboard, you'd see it down below in that box. Add DMR to this report. It contains a list of all the DMRs that have not been linked to an SMR. So you could click on that drop down, select the DMR you wanted to add to the SMR, and then click add, and it would add it to the SMR. You want to make sure that you don't have, in a perfect world, you wouldn't have anything down below. Everything would be linked perfectly and you wouldn't have any DMRs to add. So if you do have DMRs down below, you want to make sure you know what they are. You don't want to just have DMRs that are late or incomplete, just sitting around down below. Similar to the SMRs in which you're able to create a PDF of the report before you submit it, we have that same process for the DMRs. You can create a PDF before you submit it, review it before you certify your report. So Gil went over how to read that PDF. So at first we have the permit number at the top. If you look across to the right-hand side, you'll have the facility name. If you applied a no DI code for the entire feature limit set, you'd see those listed at the top. Then below that, we have it broken into the feature limit sets and then the parameters with the results. So we have our first feature, which is influent, and then A, which refers to monthly, and then you can verify that by looking at that monitoring period. So it's July 1st to the 31st. That's a monthly report. Location, season, parameter. We have a parameter code along with the parameter text. And then you can see that they're only looking for C2 and C3 for that parameter. The excursion count is 0. There are no exceedances of the limit. The analysis frequency was weekly, and the sample type was grab. So this is something that you could generate before you submit the report. And once you submit the report, there's a zip file that you can download. I'm sure you've seen this for the SMRs as well. The zip file contains a PDF of the report. It contains the CDF file that you uploaded, if you did use a CDF file. It contains all the attachments. It contains your cover letter if you uploaded one. So now, if you submit a DMR, it'll actually contain the PDF of the DMR as well. In the event that you have a DMR in that dashboard and the color of the status is red, which means it's incomplete, it will prevent you from submitting the SMR. So you'll see this dialog box stating the DMR status. DMR data is not complete. Click on DMR tab to view the status of each DMR. So if a DMR on that dashboard is red, it will prevent you from submitting the SMR. So if you run into the situation, you want to contact the DMR help desk, and we'll figure out, maybe you need to unlink that DMR so that you could submit the report. Maybe you need to apply a no-DI code to that DMR so that you could submit the report. So for instance, one example would be for that feature limit set, it was monitoring that had to be done within 5 years. So every month or every quarter, you'd see that feature limit set, and it's just supposed to be done within that year or within 5 years. So, every month you'd have the ability to enter it in, but if you didn't do that sampling that month, you could apply a no-DI code, just letting EPA know that, you didn't do that sampling that month, and, maybe a couple months since it's due within that year, you'd do it later on. So in order to submit the SMR, you need to submit the DMRs and have them all complete. They all have to be green, the statuses. So let's say you submit the report, and then later on you find out that you need to make changes. So it's similar to SMRs, you have to have the regional staff or the CWIC's help desk withdraw the report. Once you withdraw the report, then you have the ability to make changes to the data. The data for the DMR is a little bit different. Each record has a date associated for the DMR. So if you changed one result, only that date for that one result will be updated. The remaining results will retain the original submittal date. So just bear that in mind. With the SMRs, once you resubmit it, there's a timestamp associated with that copy of record file that's generated. With the DMRs, if you only need to upload one record, you just upload that one record, and then you leave the rest of the results the same, and only that date for that updated record would be changed. All right, so that's it for the slides. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to log into the system and then do a demo of it. So this will be kind of our second look at the system as well. All right, so just bear with me. I'm gonna get to our our test database. And I'm gonna log in. If it lets me. We recently did a refresh of our system, so maybe that's why it's not letting me log in. All right. We got in. Finally. I know many of you probably had that same issue after not logging in for a while. You try to log in, you're going through your list of passwords, and then you call the SWRCB help desk. So we got in. We're taken to the main menu. I'm going to click on that first link, Submit and Review SMR, DMR. So if you had several facilities, it would list them on the first page that you're taken to. I'm just going to select a facility. Then it shows the active permits for that facility. I want to show you a quick tip right here. If you were like in between permits and you just got a new permit and for some reason you had to make a change to an older permit, by clicking the Show All button right here, it will show your previous permits. So then you could click into your previous permit, the 2006 permit, and you can make a change to a report there if you needed to. By default, it shows the active permits, so it would show the 2011 one. Once we click on the order number, it shows us that report selection screen. So at the top, we have the different statuses: submitted, in progress, past due, future, withdrawn. By default, they're all checked. Below that, we have the date range, so 6 months of past and 6 months of future reports. We could change that. If we did make a change, we click refresh and it would rebuild the table below. So we're interested in looking at the August report. I'm going to click on that August link. It brings us to the report builder screen. And so you guys should be familiar with this one. We have the different tabs going across: no discharge, EDF, CDF, analytical, calculated data summary. Those are all the different buckets, and each one you put different types of data into them. So today we're looking at that DMR tab. It's the second to last tab. So what we have at the top is the dashboard. It displays those feature limit sets. So 001A, so outfall 001A would be the monthly report.
You're paused.
I think we're paused. Let me jump back and show you what we went over while I was paused. Main menu, we want to click on the Submit and Review SMRs or DMR. If you had several facilities, they would be listed below. I'm going to click on our test one. So clicking on the facility, it lists the order numbers. So the tip I wanted to show earlier was that if you click Show All, it will show the previous order. So if you did need to make a change, if you're right in between, permits, I needed to make a change to the older one, a report within the older one, you click Show All, and it will show the historical orders. By default, it's only showing the active one. So I'm going to click on that order. It's going to pop us over to the report selection screen. We have our statuses that we could filter and the date range we could filter as well. I'm going to click on the August report. And so here we are, the report builder. We have the tabs going across the different buckets where we put information. So we're going to look at this DMR tab. The DMR tab, what we have at the top is the dashboard. So we have 001A, which is the feature, 001, and then A. A is the feature, 001A is the outfall. So that's the monthly report, which is designated by A, and we can verify that by looking at that monitoring period, so August 1st through the 31st. So we want to verify that whenever we open up the dashboard, and we could just look at, the SMR and see that's August 1st through the 31st, so, it matched it. The due date, so October 1st. If we wanted to apply a no DI code for the entire feature limit set, we could select the no DI code from this drop-down menu. So that situation we talked about earlier, if you have a report that's due once within 5 years or once within a year, I believe you could use no DI code 9, conditional monitoring, not required this period. When you select that no DI code, you see that the status is changed to green, letting you know that it's good, it's completed. If you wanted to remove a no DI code, click on that drop down and select the empty space at the top. That removes the no DI code. if you wanted to start entering data for this feature limit set using the web entry form, you click on that feature limit set. So if I clicked on 001A, it brings us to the web entry form. And so this data is fetched from EPA's database, and it's populated specifically for your permit. So it has your permit specifics in here. So for example, the first parameter we see is turbidity, the quantity or loading. There are no expectations for quantity or loading. There are no entry boxes. For quality and concentration, I do see 3 boxes. So there's a min, an average, and then there's a max. And so the min, it looks like there's limits associated to them as well. So the min, we have less than or equal to 75 for the monthly average. The average, we have less than or equal to 100, high weekly average. And then the max is less than or equal to 225 instantaneous maximum. So this is where you would enter in your results. If you were over any one of these limits, you'd put the total number of times you were over in the excursions box. So, for instance, I'm going to put in just some numbers, 85. Once I enter in the results, I click Save. You'll see that the status box said that the parameter was saved successfully, and then it disappeared. There aren't any warnings or errors, listed in the status box. If I did want to change, the sample type to a different type of grab, and I click Save, you'll see that the parameter was saved successfully, and then we do have a warning letting us know that the parameter type was changed from grab, which was provided in the permit. So it's changed from what was expected. If we change the frequency to twice per report period, I click Save. Another warning is displayed in the status box, letting us know that the frequency was changed from what was required weekly in the permit. So it states what the permit stated. So they wanted a grab and weekly, and we put in a grab 2 and then twice per report period. So if you ever wanted to go back to what the permit requested, we have that text right here showing us what you could change it to, so that it reflects what the permit required. The units for some situations like not BOD, but for turbidity, it's just NTU, and for temperature, you'd just see degrees. For other parameters, I'm not sure you'd use it for BOD, but you do have different. You have the ability to select a different unit. So BOD wouldn't make sense. pH, that's only the standard unit. If there's a situation in which you needed to change the units, you could change them. Another important thing is looking at the banner where it displays the parameter code and name. We have feature 001, season 0, monitoring location 1, and then comments, and that's a link. If you click on show, it will display any comments EPA has entered in for that entire feature limit set, and then you could hide it if you chose to. At any point, you could save. So for each parameter, there's a save, and then at the top, there's a save all, and then at the bottom, there's a save all. Right now, it's grayed out, letting you know that you've already saved it. If I did make a change, then you see that the save box is now bold, and you can click on it. So I'm going to click on it, and then you'll see the parameter was saved successfully, and then the box is grayed out again. So the web entry forms, it's populated by using this empty slot file that we fetch from EPA's system. So it shows exactly what is required. So there aren't any questions, going back and forth with a caseworker or having to update, your PET tool. everything that's required is displayed on the screen. You could go through it. You could tab through it, enter in your information. If, for instance, you wanted to apply a no-DI code for only a parameter, we'd use this no-DI column and select the no-DI code from the drop-down menu. Currently, right now, it's grayed out. That's because we do have a result in here. If we remove the result, then we'd be able to select the no-DI code. So I could select the no-DI code and save it. If we selected the no-DI code for all the results, you'll get a dialog box, and then it would say that it's resetting the units, sample type, analysis frequency, and excursions for the parameter. So it's just letting you know that's going to change that if you apply a no-DI code for the entire parameter. Click OK. So you just click OK if you get that dialog box, and you'll see that the no-DI code for this parameter now is B, and it removed, any excursion, sample type, or frequency.
And that's part of US EPA's database system. So when a code gets put into a parameter, it automatically removes the sampling type and the frequency along with the units. So if you hit cancel, I want to say it causes issues, so you want to hit OK.
Yeah, it's not an error or anything, So just you click OK, and that's it. Click Save Parameter, then it's saved. I'm going to back out to the dashboard. You'll see now for 001A, the status, it's set to incomplete. So we filled out some data, but we didn't fill everything out. So it's incomplete. I'm going to click on the influent. If we look at this influent, we've already entered in data in this one. We entered in some BOD data, some TSS data. So this one was completed. I'm going to click back. Also in this example, we have a few items or a few DMRs that we could add to the report. So if you click on that drop down, first it shows the due date. So these are due November 1st and then January 1st, 2017. So if you needed to add it, you click on the one that you want, and then you click add. When you click add, it's linked to this report. So we added this new one right here, INF is 001-A, actually 001-A, and monitoring period is November 1st to the 30th, and then the due date is January 1st, 2017. So simply selecting it and clicking add will add it, to this report. If we wanted to remove it, we'll click unlink. We'll get this dialog box asking if you're sure you want to unlink it. We click OK. Then it's back down here in the drop down, ready to add to a different SMR.
I wanted to add too, having the freedom to link on a link has caused problems for major dischargers, and they've been submitting data, because if they submit the wrong report, that data will actually replace what's in ISIS. And if they submit the wrong date, say the wrong year, it totally replaces the previously submitted data. So we want to make sure that that's why we're emphasizing that if you do need to unlink or link, let us know before you do it.
Yeah, make sure that the monitoring period is correct. So 8/1, and then look at the year, as Renan pointed out. This is 2016. You want to make sure you're submitting the report for the right year. When we started the majors in 2014, I believe it was in September 2014, and then when it came around to submit their annual reports, they had some annual reports for January 2014 that were, due January 2014, and they submitted the wrong annual ones, and it was just simply looking at that date, making sure that that date was correct. So it caused them to have to resubmit that data for the 2015, annual report, and then fixing the 2014 annual report as well, because it overrid it. So please look at the monitoring period and make sure you have the right one listed. So we clicked on the feature limits and we looked at the web entry forms, and that is populated by using an empty slot file that we get from EPA system, and it shows specifics for your facility, what's needed for your facility. If you choose to create your own upload file, you'll click on Upload Manage Files. So click Browse, select your file, and upload it. We have instructions on how to generate your own file. It is pretty advanced to create your own file. We believe most people will use the web entry forms since it's pre-populated with what is required for your permit. If you want to create a PDF of your report before you submit it, or at any time, even before you complete it, click DMR PDF report. We're going to open it, and you can see the data you've entered in or the data that's required. So right here, it's showing the feature limits at 001A. We just entered in data for C1, C2, and C3 of the first parameter. But if you wanted to look at all the other parameters and then all the other, quantity, that's Q1 and Q2, concentration, C1, C2, C3, what else is required, then you could use this to take a look at what's required. So we have turbidity, BOD, pH, total suspended solids, settable solids, nitrogen, zinc, copper, oil and grease, flow, and you can see exactly what's required. If the box is empty, that means it's not required. Again, this is a continuation of 001A. We have chlorine, coliform, BOD, percent removal, suspended solids, percent removal. So it looks like there's just 1.5 pages for 001. And then now on this page 3, we have INFA, and there's only 2 parameters. So even if you haven't entered in data, you could use that PDF just to have a printout of it and look at it, before you fill it out. And once you do fill it out, you want to print it, look at it, verify it before you certify and submit the report. Once you have all your data in, we'll go to the Submittal tab. If an item is red on the dashboard, we're going to get this message letting us know that the DMR data is not complete and that we need to complete it before we submit the report. So then you go back to the DMR dashboard and you want to complete, the data for 001A before you submit it. So the SMR and DMR are submitted at the same time. The SMR, you're using your PET tool and you're submitting your monitoring data as well as showing you're in compliance with your permit. The DMR data is higher level data, summary data, so it's 2 different data sets. So you still submit your SMR data, either uploading it through the EDF-CDF tab or entering it into the web entry screens if you use that. The DMR gets entered in here on the DMR tab, and it's separate. It's 2 different data sets. So on the DMR tab, we did spend more time developing the web entry forms since we had since ICES coded in all the parameters, since all the parameters were coded into EPA's database ICES, we could fetch that data and populate those forms. So it's a lot easier to use these web entry forms since your specific permit information is in here. Whereas the PET tool, if you sampled more per month, you could use the PET tool and put in more lines of data. Whereas the DMR, there are no places to put in more information. It's just what you see on the screen is what you enter in. So if you wanted to enter in a quantity or loading for turbidity or a different parameter, there is no place to put it only the places which have the results box is what you're allowed to enter in. So it makes it easier. You don't have to think as much about if everything is complete. And then we have the status box here showing you green is complete or red is incomplete. So let me take you to our login screen. So let's just recap what we went over so far. First, we went over the slides, and that was kind of similar information to what we just went over in the demo. The demo, we did the hands-on, going through each tab, clicking around. Now I want to take you to our help page. And so this is our login screen. I bet a lot of you have this bookmarked. So at our login screen, earlier today, I had problems logging in, and I bet everybody has that same issue. If you ever forget your password or forget your user ID, you could reset them right here, reset your password. In addition to that, we have on the left-hand side, under SWRCB resources, it's the SWRCB MPDS link. If you click on that link, we have kind of our help page for eSMR. And under the first heading, FAQ, frequently asked questions, the second link, which is what is eSMR 2.5, we describe eSMR 2.5, who's required to submit DMRs, how does eSMR 2.5 work, and we have this DMR entry guide. So this is a PDF. So later on this afternoon or tomorrow, after you forget what I talked about today, you can open up this PDF and then revisit all those topics that we discussed. So we have an introduction, the dashboard, web entry form, upload, manage files. You know, if you wanted to upload your, if you wanted to create an upload file, the PDF. You know, before you enter in data or after you've entered in your data, before you certify, you can create that PDF. The PDF will be included in the copy of record, that zip file, after you submit the report. That copy of record contains all the files that you've uploaded in the report. Linking and unlinking, how to do that, the submittal tab, and then importantly is attachment 1. So attachment 1 lists all the NoDI codes that you could use. So I suggest that you print out this last page and then tape it up by the computer that you're going to use to enter in your SMRs or DMRs as well now. And then if you run into a situation in which you have to use a NoDI code, you call the DMR help desk, and then we'll make sure that you're using the right DMR, make sure you're using the right NoDI code. And then we'll go over, Gil's going to go over the NoDI codes a little bit later on. So if you print this out, you could highlight the appropriate NoDI codes that you can highlight the NoDI codes that are appropriate for the particular situation in which you are, and we're going to be going over those situations a little bit later on. So it's a good idea to print this out and have it by your computer so that you get familiar with the NoDI codes and when to use them. So I'm going to go through this PDF, and this will kind of be like our third look at it. So first was the slides, second was the demo, and then third is this PDF document. And you can always go back to this PDF document. Just remember from your login page, you look to the left under SWRCB resources, and then you click on SWRCB MPDS, and it's the second link, right under the FAQs. So introduction and overview. Today we're describing how to enter in your DMRs on the DMR tab. The tab has the DMR dashboard, and the DMR dashboard has web entry screens which are pre-populated with expectations according to the permits for your specific facility. So that's the best, easiest way to do it, is clicking through those web entry forms and entering in the data that way. If you have any questions, regarding the process, we have our email address, dmr@waterboards.ca.gov. We wanted to point out that the SMR tab or the SMR data is not linked to the DMR data. It's two different data sets. So you enter in your SMR data on one tab, and then you enter in your DMR data on a different tab, and they're separate data sets. No DI codes, print out that form, and then we'll go over them a little bit later on so you're familiar with which one to use. There's some that you should not use. Both the eSMR and DMR must be completed before submitting. And you did see that dialog box that prevented you from submitting the report if the DMR had not been complete. On the dashboard, if any of the sections were red, you would not be able to submit that report. If you need to resubmit data, suppose you submit your report and then something you found that you needed to change, you need to contact your caseworker. They withdraw your report, and then only the data points with different values on the DMR side will be updated, and they would reflect the new date, whereas all the previous data will retain the old date. And then at any time you can click Save and then return back and finish it the next day or an hour later or 2 hours later. And again, we have our email address again, the DMR @waterboards.ca.gov. So let me just skim through this. The dashboard, again, by clicking on that DMR tab from the report builder, it displays that dashboard. The dashboard has a table, and then each column in that table serves a purpose, and I have the description of each column. So the first one is the feature limit set, and you click on that to get into the web entry forms. The monitoring period, that's a really important one to verify that you're in the right month and verify that you're in the right year, especially when it comes up to the annual one. You want to make sure you're looking at the right year. Due date, no DI, if you want to apply a no DI code to the entire feature limit set, you do that there. Our status, you don't want to see any red ones when you're ready to submit. You want them to be green. The web entry forms, it's broken up into how Gil pointed out. So at first we have C1 and C2, which is your quantity or loading, and then, or actually Q1, Q2, quantity and loading, and then concentration, C1, C2, and C3. And you can go through that, and you can click Save at each parameter, or you can click Save All at the bottom or Save All at the top. Once you click Save, the Save button will be grayed out until you make any changes. So that way, you know that you've saved it. Within that web entry screen, you have the result boxes for only those quantities or concentrations that are required. You can change the sample type and frequency if needed. The status box down below will reflect any changes you made, letting you know that you changed the sample type from what was expected in the permit. You also have the ability to enter in a no DI code for just an individual parameter. You want to click on the comments to view any comments entered in by EPA. Here's a screenshot of selecting a no DI code for a specific result of that parameter. Here's another screenshot of that dialog box, letting you know if you selected no DI codes for every result for that parameter. You'll get this dialog box. You click OK. It's just a message. It's not an error. It's not a warning or anything. It's just letting you know that that's what it does. It sets the sample type, frequency, and units just to blank if you select no DI codes for all the results for that parameter. Excursions, that's where you record any results that were greater than the limit. Source web entry lets you know that you've either entered it into the web page or you've uploaded a file. So again, if you want to make changes later on, if you entered it through the web entry forms, then you can make that change on the web entry form. If you uploaded the file, you'd have to go and remove that file and then make changes on your computer and then re-upload that file. The good part about it is if you entered in data, you're asking probably why the source box even shows upload file. Because if you did upload your file and you clicked on that web entry form, it will show you all the data that you uploaded in that format, but you won't be able to make changes on it. So even if you upload your file and you click on the web entry forms, you'll see all the data that you uploaded, and it'll be in that format, which is nice. But when it comes time to making changes, you'd have to delete that file and then make the changes on your computer and then re-upload it. Again, below the source, we have that status, letting you know if you haven't entered in a result. Uploading and managing files. We have specifications on how to create your upload file. We have a hyperlink to it. It is complicated. So if you have a LIM system or a programmer at your facility, you'd need to use them to create this upload file. Again, we spend a lot of time and resources on creating the web entry forms. But if you wanted to upload a file, we have the instructions there. You'd upload your file, click Browse, then upload your file. PDF of your report, you click that second button on the dashboard and then create a PDF of all the data that you entered in on the DMR tab. Linking and unlinking. It's important to contact the DMR help desk before you link and unlink. If it's something that's reoccurring every month, you know, that the report's in the wrong location, or if you have a report from an incorrect year down below, you don't want to link that one by accident. So contact the help desk first. All the DMR and SWRCB submit at the same time. You want to make sure you have your DMR completed. So all those boxes have to be green before you submit the report. And then at the end, we have our NODI codes. Let me jump back to our FAQ page. So that's clicking on DMR entry guide, and that PDF is available right now if you wanted to look at it. We also have a training video from 2014 when we trained the major MPS dischargers on how to use the system. So that's right here. The options you have in uploading your data, you know, using the web interface, the web entry forms, or if you wanted to create your own upload file, I have the specifications right here in this Excel spreadsheet, and we have an example file that you could upload. The Excel spreadsheet contains a list of all the fields. I believe there's 31 fields that go across, and we have a list of all the different parameters, like the valid values. So here's a list of all the fields, and then we have groups, the header, the description, an example, and then if it's required or not. And so here we scroll down. Yeah, there's 31 fields. If you wanted to create your own upload file, we have a list of all the valid values. Here's a list of all the parameters, NODI codes, unit of measures, frequency of analysis, and then sample types. So that is a little bit more sophisticated to do that. We believe most people will use the web entry forms since it's all spelled out in that form for you. We have 2 additional training sessions. So if you go after going through this training and looking at that PDF yourself, if you still have questions, there's 2 trainings in October, so the 7th and the 12th, if you wanted to join us again.
Right, and the access information for those trainings will be the same as this training.
All right, so to recap again, Renan started it. He introduced us to what DMRs are, why they are required, e-reporting rule. Gil showed you what the DMR form is. He walked you through, the different sections and how to read it. And then we went over the DMR tab, the DMR dashboard. We looked at the slides. We did a demo of the dashboard. And then we went over that PDF of eSMR 2.5, we went to our help page, just from the login screen. So this is the login screen. Most of you probably have this bookmarked. I went to SWRCB resources, clicked on SWRCB MPDS, clicked on what's eSMR 2.5. Here's our page, our additional training sections, our entry guide, training video. We're going to upload a new video, figure out which one's the best, which I made the least amount of mistakes, I guess, and then we'll upload that. Make sure that, this NoDI code, the NoDI page at the end of the guide, print that out, and then Gil's going to go over those NoDI codes and when it's appropriate to use them. I'm going to jump back to our presentation. And then we're going to go over typical discharger issues. So I'm going to hand it back over to Gil.
Okay. So the typical discharger DMR issues. So the major NPDS dischargers have been submitting these DMRs for the last 12, 13 years. Now, throughout this whole time, we've had a lot of dischargers contact us with issues, and we've isolated three of the main issues. So about 90% of the problems are the three that fall into one of the three categories on the screen. So let's go over those right now. So the first DMR discharger issue is the DMR has the incorrect monitoring period. So I'll show you how to look through that for that, and then how to correct it as well. The next issue is incorrect monitoring requirements or incorrect limits, or incorrect monitoring requirements in the DMR form or missing forms. This usually happens when a permit gets renewed. Some of the new requirements of the permit aren't correctly transferred into the DMRs. In these cases, the only real way to resolve it is to contact the DMR Help Center. And again, that's dmr@waterboards.ca.gov, and I'll put that information up at the end of the presentation. And then the third one is what no discharge indicator code to use, so a NODI code. In the past, we've had dischargers select the wrong code, which causes violations in US EPA's database system. So I'll show you which ones you can use safely and for what situations to use them for and which ones to avoid. So let's start with the first one. So typical discharge or DMR has an incorrect monitoring period. So when you're using the DMR forms and you're trying to log in the information, you want to double check the monitoring periods. So next to feature limit set, you'll see the monitoring period for the DMRs. So in this case, it's August 1st through August 31st, 2016. But if we go up to the SMR date, or report effective date, you'll see that it's September 1st through September 30th. So in this case, these don't match. So the best thing to do would be to contact the DMR Help Center. We can help locate these other forms. But if you have this information available, you can also unlink these documents and link the correct ones to them. And this happens there are multiple reasons why this could happen. You have two different database systems trying to communicate with each other, so every now and then there's a glitch with them. But at times what could happen is in the SMRs or in SWRCB, you have the option to skip weekends and have a report due the following business day. And that has caused some issues because in US EPA's database system, they don't have that option. So if something's due on a Saturday or a Sunday, well, in US EPA's database system, it's due that day, versus in the SWRCB system, it's possible that your caseworker could have selected to skip those due dates and have it due during the business day. The next issue is incorrect monitoring requirements, incorrect limits, or missing monitoring requirements from the DMR forms. In this case, I pulled out some permit language. Actually, this is the table, the effluent limitations table from a permit. As you can see, BOD 5, we have an average monthly of 30 and an average weekly of 45. And now we look at the DMR form itself. For BOD, you're looking at an average of 20 and a max of 35. So as you can see, those two don't match up. there's a number of reasons why this could have happened. Usually when a permit gets reissued is the main cause. It also could be a time schedule order or a compliance schedule order requiring those limits to change. We want to get those fixed as soon as possible. In this case, if you were to put in, let's say you got a monthly average of 25 milligrams per liter, and you populated this, well, this will cause a violation in US EPA's database system, when in reality, you hadn't met the limit yet. So again, to fix this, we appreciate if you could just locate the information in the permit before you give us a call so you can direct us to the correct page. And then we can take it from there and have US EPA fix this issue. Now the last one is the no discharge indicator codes. So I highlighted the most frequently used codes. So we'll go through them right now. The first one I want to go through is NODI code C. Stands for no discharge. So this is usually used for facilities that have multiple outfalls and are only discharging through one outfall. What they'll do is they'll populate the information for the one outfall, and then for the other outfalls, they'll use this code for the entire DMR form, that way removing them from the system. The next one is NODI code 9. This is conditional monitoring, not required during this period. So the best example that I've ran across is for toxicity testing. At the beginning of a permit cycle, you're required, or most permits or most permittees are required to monitor for 3 different species for toxicity. What ends up happening, though, is after you do the initial monitoring, the most sensitive species is then used from throughout the rest of the permit cycle. Well, the DMR forms are coded in such a way that it'll require those 3 species every single monitoring period throughout the permit life. So what you do is the first time you monitor, when you test all 3 species, you populate all the information for the 3 species. During the next cycle, when you're only doing your most sensitive species, the other 2 species, you use the NODI code 9, and that'll remove it from the system and prevent any violations. The next 2 are below the NODI code B, which is below detection limit, or no detection, and NODI code Q for not quantifiable. So I'll go over these in just a minute, but I wanted to point out a few codes that you want to stay away from. For instance, NODI code E, analysis not conducted or no sample. So this code, a lot of dischargers confuse this with NODI code 9, meaning there's something not required. In this case, it means that you really didn't do the sample or didn't do the analysis, meaning you didn't take a sample and you didn't send it to the lab. So this automatically causes a no reporting violation in US EPA's database system. So you want to stay away from E. The next one is NODI code X. It's along the same lines, parameter and value not reported. Again, some dischargers were using that in place of NODI code 9, meaning that the parameter wasn't required by the permit, but in reality this stands for that the value was not reported, period, meaning you may have done the analysis, but you decided for one reason or another not to report it. Well, this causes, again, a non-reporting violation in US EPA's database system. So stay away from those 2. If you want to use any of these other NODI codes, I suggest giving us a call before you use it, or you can email us at dmr@waterboard.ca.gov. So let's move on to the next one. Well, I'm going to discuss NODI code B and NODI code Q. So here we are. So NODI code B. NODI code B is used when you have a no detection, or you don't have any detection or ND value, and that's anything below your MDL. Usually your labs will identify which values are non-detect. So you want to use NODI code B for those values. The next one is NODI code Q. That's between your MDL and your RL or ML. And those are values that are detected but not quantifiable. So those are your J flag values and your D and Q values. So the way to use this is just use the NODI code. I know that in the SMRs it's a little different. You can select the J and then write the actual value or the estimated value. With the DMRs, that is not the case. You just use the NODI code Q and submit the information that way. There's also an option in the DMRs to use a less than sign. We strongly urge you to not use that sign. It's caused issues in the past. NODI code Q is what you should be using. And then if you have a value, just go ahead and show that value. So that's pretty much it for the presentation. Let's see, we've gone over the web page, we've gone over the entry guide. So I'll go ahead and put up the our contact information, and so the DMR Help Center is right here at the bottom. So dmrs@waterboards.ca.gov. There's our phone number. If you have any questions regarding CWIX, or if you want to use the comma separated file, you can contact Rassam for that. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to unmute everybody. That way, if you have any questions, you can just go ahead and speak. And let me do this real quick. Uh-oh, where's the minute? There we go. All right, just give me a second here. All right, and everybody.
All guests have been unmuted.
Okay, so we'll probably be on the phone for another 10 minutes or so. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask.
Go back to the
hi, my name's Guy West from Bear Valley Water District. I'm just curious as to so our discharge permit is basically a land application permit, and it's not associated with any kind of a discharge point. Is this all still going to be required of us? Is this still going to be linked to our SMR?
Now, do you have an NPDES permit?
Yes, we do. We have both a NPDES permit as well as a land discharge permit.
Okay. Well, the NPDES side of it'll just be when it's discharged to a surface water body. So that's the information we're going to need. For any land discharge, US EPA is not interested in that information. So what you'll do is if, let's say, it sounds like, let's say you're just discharging to land, and the DMR forms are available in CWIX. What you'll use is that NODI code 9 to say that it's not.
No, I think
or NODI code.
No discharge. You may have a seasonal or land disposal facility most of the time, but the times that you would be discharging to the surface water body, then you will be populating the DMR with the actual data, the monitoring. But for the times that you're not, that DMR is still required, but you'll be using that code, NODIC.
NODIC, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll go ahead and pull up the list of NODI codes so everyone can see them.
Because EPA really only cares for the effluent monitoring for discharges to surface water. So it's not going to ask for receiving water data either. It's not going to ask for groundwater, land disposal. It's only going to require any effluent that would end up going to a receiving water. So stormwater, if you have stormwater discharges, those may also be required. And so they're going to be required, but you may not have a storm event. Therefore, you will still need to submit it, but you may need to use, in that case, it depends. If there was no stormwater at all, then NODIC as well.
Hello, this is Mike Koza with Sacramento County Department of Waste Management. I'm looking at the DMR upload specifications, the file specifications, and in the sixth field it mentions a season number. Can you explain how that gets applied? Is it the month you're looking for?
Yeah, let me get to that.
In the PDF?
The PDF? All right.
Or the guide?
Is it in the guide or is it in the...
I'm looking at an Excel file, DMR upload format.
Yeah, we'll just pull it up on the screen real quick.
No.
We do temperature monitoring and the monthly changes to the limits, so I may have to use that.
Right. So that number is actually used by US EPA. What it's for is, let's say you do have two different requirements. So you have a wet weather and dry weather. for the same parameter, but you have different limits. That's what US EPA uses. So you'll see, let's say it's for, I don't know, just pick BOD, and you have a wet weather and a dry weather, different limits for both for each season. US EPA will go in there and actually create a BOD parameter using season 0, probably representing the wet weather, and then a BOD parameter using the season 1 to represent the dry weather parameter. So it's important if you have those kinds of conditions to look at the comments in the DMRs. That'll show you where if there's two different requirements depending on the season. So what you'll do is when you populate the season, the other parameter you'll actually use a NODI code 9 to remove the information. Does that make sense?
And this could also apply to metals. You have like a dry weather limit and a wet weather limit. So you'll see the copper, say copper, you'll see it twice. And the only distinction would be that season number, that season code that EPA uses.
Yeah.
Well, we have to input that, right?
You will, well, if you use the web entry, it will already be documented in the web base.
Right. There'll be.
It will show there what you need to submit. But if you're going to create your CSV file, then you'll have to incorporate those codes.
Okay, and I get those off the web entry then?
And you will get those from, you can get them from the web entry.
Because I explained our permit, we have a temperature limit that varies by month of the year.
Right. So if you do that PDF version, you'll see what season is using. That way you'll know how to code that CSV file.
Okay. So I'll go back, I'll go to the web and it'll tell me what codes I need.
Because if you look at that CSV file, the first values, I think, is the actual outfall, the 001A, the feature, and then it goes into the monitoring period, and then it goes into the parameter, and so on. See if you can just go back to the CSV. Yeah, right there, that one. So if you make that, see the first digits are your actual limit feature. Then you see the period, then you see the parameter code, and right there is where you will see the 10. Those will change based on the season that you are referring to, or you have your limitations applicable.
Okay, thank you.
Now, if anybody wants to take a look at their DMRs before you can actually log into the system, send an email to the DMR Help Center. That's dmr@waterboards.ca.gov, requesting your DMR forms. What we can do is, if it has been coded in US EPA's database system, we can create a PDF version of your DMRs and send them to you. This way you can look at the DMRs before it's time to start loading the information and let us know if there's any corrections that are needed.
Also, because of the December 21st deadline or compliance date, we're considering that to apply to the January DMR, which is, or the January due date. So it really includes the November DMR. So we're going to make the DMRs available from November forward, so you can start inputting the data.
But it's not terrible. Well, it was good. That was the first time it actually was informative. It's nice to see them go through it. Yeah. It needs a very visual group.
So I have a question. My name is Daniel Mullins.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
I'm on a cell phone, so I don't know if I'm cutting out here.
Yep, we can hear you, Daniel. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. So on this DMR, when I click on that tab, are you saying that I have to enter all the data that I would enter on my current eSMR 2.0?
The data that you'll have to enter is going to show you in the web entry form. And it's not everything. It's not like Rasan mentioned earlier, if you have daily temperature, you're not going to have to enter every daily result. You're only going to enter the maximum.
Okay, so like, for example, once a week, and we have turbidity minimum, maximum, average daily, that's I just copy and paste from my SCADA system. So I'm just curious as when I see it, I guess I'll know what kind of questions, but I mean, will I have to enter that data every day, three entries?
No. It's for the month.
Yeah, this will be like it's a summary, if you will. So you'll probably have to enter your average and your maximum for that parameter, and that'll be it. But
Okay.
you know, if you want to take a look at your DMRs, just send me an email at the DMRs@waterboards.ca.gov requesting your DMR forms, and just provide your NPDES number so I can locate them. And if US EPA has coded it, I'll send you a PDF copy of your DMRs. That way you can take a look at what you're going to be required to submit.
Okay, so it'll be like a whole month of my dailies.
Correct. Yeah.
Well, just a summary of your daily values. So you'll probably submit an average and a max. You won't have to submit all the discrete data.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So like the whole month, though, like every day. So I probably should create some kind of a Excel form that when I entered my data, it would give me my monthly information to plug into there, right?
Right.
It sounds like you're doing continuous turbidity. Is that why?
Yeah, it's continuous.
Yeah. So if you do continuous turbidity and you have limits, probably EPA will code the highest instantaneous value for the month, the daily maximum for the month, and the monthly average or median for the month. So you still will look at all, even though you have continuous data, each day you'll have to compare all 30 days and find the highest continuous value or the highest daily and the monthly average or median. But again, it will be a summarized version of what it's not every day that you'll have to do that.
Right, right.
Okay, but I'll have to create an Excel format that I could just easily look at, those, I guess.
Right.
Yeah,
yeah. And then I'm using the 2.0 eSMR. Should I get the new 2.5?
No, you don't have to do anything.
It's already there. It's already accessible. So we just call it 2.5 because it's been revised because it incorporates the DMR tab.
Right. Now, the DMR tab isn't available yet for minor dischargers, and we're planning to roll that out sometime in either late October or early November. So
after we complete all the training.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll continue to use my 2.0.
Yep. Yeah, just continue to use your PET tool.
Okay, sounds good.
I have a question.
Yes.
Kurt Farrell with Mariposa PUD. Is the suspended solids and BOD percent removal auto-populate based off of your influent and effluent, or do you calculate that in Internet?
You'll have to calculate that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, this is Guy West with another question.
Uh-huh.
So currently we have both a discharge permit as well as a land application permit. And I was under the impression that this new DMR tab was going to take away our need to submit 2 separate reports monthly. But now, after having listened to everything today and the questions that have been asked, it sounds like I'm still going to need to email my monthly DMR report to that person that's always received it at the water board. Am I correct?
Explain. You said you have are they 2 separate permits or is the same permit that includes both?
No, they are 2 separate permits.
Oh, so you're talking about the land disposal permit. That is I think there's no electronic requirement yet for that particular type of discharge.
That's correct. As a matter of fact, we recently, maybe 6 or 9 months ago, started emailing it to somebody instead of sending a hard copy monthly, but that's the only changes that have been made. So I was just curious, being as they are 2 separate permits, then I still follow the MRPs based on each permit, correct?
Right. This training is strictly for NPDES permits requirements.
Okay, cool. Thank you very much.
Yep.
I have a question. Name's Tony Thomasy, City Shasta Lake. Looking on your slides, you had on the data entry, you had a reporting month and a reporting period, and you had a due date. And on the one, on your monitoring period, but do you have a month to submit your data, or is it due, like, there was one up here earlier that said you had reporting month of September, and if you wanted to change it, is your September stuff due October 1st?
No. The DMRs usually is the first day of the second month after the monitoring is conducted.
Okay.
And this should follow your SMR requirements too. It'll mimic it. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Just keep in mind that the DMRs basically separate your requirements into monthly, quarterly, semi-annuals, and annuals. As opposed to your PET tool, it may just include everything that you submit on a monthly basis, and there'll be months where you conduct it quarterly, but it doesn't differentiate. So we want to make sure that you understand that difference. So the DMRs make it easier for you to know what needs to be submitted because it separates them. Go back to the NODI codes. I wanted to clarify something too. There are times where dischargers take the samples to the lab, but the lab delays their reporting, and you still want to comply with the due date. I know we mentioned the code X is not an appropriate code to use. However, if you want to be in compliance with the submittal, you could still use that code. You just got to remember that you need to withdraw that report. So then once you get the lab data, then you can enter the result and then resubmit it. So it's still an okay code to use, but just be aware that if you don't change it, it would constitute a no reporting violation.
Right. But, I mean, before you go in and change that to a NODI code X, you want to contact us because we'll be the ones later on withdrawing your report and walking you through how to resubmit this information. So again, it can be used temporarily, but you definitely want to contact the DMR Help Center. And again, all these codes are available in the DMR user guide, and that's from our eSMR webpage.
And you could apply this code for the entire discharge or limit feature, or DMR, or you could apply them to individual parameters. Like the NODI-B and NODI-Q, most likely that will be for individual parameters. The NODI-C would apply if there's no discharge of the entire from the entire outflow. And same thing with conditional. It could be specific to parameter or it could be specific to the entire DMR.
All right, folks, well, we're getting to the end here, so if you have any questions, go ahead and let us know.
And like Phil said, if you want to see your DMR so you have an understanding how it's been coded, you can send a request to the DMR@waterboards.ca.gov Help Center email, and then we'll try to provide you with what it looks like right now.
All right, folks. Well, my clock shows 11:40. Are there any other questions out there? No? Did I hear a question?
No, I mean, it's all good. And when I send my email to the DMR help, I just include my permit number and all that, and they'll know.
Yeah, just your NPDES number, and just let us know that you want to take a look at your DMRs. And again, US EPA is currently coding a lot of the dischargers, so we have about 40 to 50 facilities throughout the state that haven't been coded yet. So it's possible that we may not have your DMRs available at this time, but if they're available, I'll go ahead and send them to you.
Okay, thank you.
What's that email address again?
Sure, I'll put it up on the screen for you. go. So it's DMR. It's at the bottom of the screen. So DMR@waterboards.ca.gov.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, if you guys come up with any other questions, you can always email them to the DMR Help Center. Again, that's DMR@waterboards.ca.gov. And we also have, the two trainings available in October 7th and October 12th. It uses the same access information. If you want to participate in those, you can also email us or just go to the to our webpage, eSMR webpage, and that contains the information. And again, it's the same access information you used today, so you can use the same link. But yeah, October 7th from 2 to 4 and October 12th from 10 to 12. All right, so if there are no other questions, we'll go ahead and end the training.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
The host has left the meeting. So at this time, the meeting will come to an end. Thank you and goodbye.